All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this session on building a support rubric. My name is Cynthia Williamson, and this is my 7th day as a Jamf employee. So I'm very, very excited to be here. And this is a test in my onboarding to come up and do the panel. Just joking. I'm really excited today to have Louise and Nate and Dawn on the stage with me today. As it was indicated at the kickoff for this session, we're going to go through a series of questions that have been submitted and provided to us, and then we'll open things up to the 2 mics on either side of the audience here in the last 10-15 minutes of the session so that we can take additional questions for you. So to kick things off here, I'm going to turn over to each of the panelists to give you a little bit of information about who they are, where they work, and how they fit into the Jamf ecosystem. Louise?
Hi, I'm Luis Radifera. I am the IT manager for CBS Interactive. I am a Jamf customer. I rolled out Jamf in a previous life to CBS about 3 or 4 years ago. And what's the rest of our question?
How do you fit in?
Oh, yeah. No, well, I'm just the Jamf customer. And being at the Interactive division, we're looking at automating a lot of our workflows.
I am Nate Kinnick. I am the senior manager in technical support at Jamf. So a little bit different context than my counterparts here on stage. It is also my 7th day at Jamf. That's a lie. I've been here for 6 years. But hopefully I can bring a slightly different dynamic to the things that we're talking about today and shed a little light on how we kind of run our technical support operation.
All right. I'm Don Pulowski. I am the CTO at University Tees. We're a custom apparel shop geared towards university students. So if you're a sorority girl in Delta Gamma and you want your shirt to say Delta Gamma, you come to us for all that good stuff. I've been there for about 5 years. And I am evaluating Jamf right now, so I'm not actually a customer. So continue to impress me. Nate and folks. And a discount. Maybe back there I can get a discount from someone, hopefully.
Charles,
Charles?
He'll field that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate that. It's on camera, so. Yeah, that's why I'm evaluating Jamf, CTO. That was all the things, right? Perfect.
All the things. Perfect. Excellent. So let's jump in here. The first question for the panel is, what is the most important aspect of building a good automated support system?
Probably the best part is that it is seamless and easy for your end user. So if the end user wants to do something, it has to be seamless and it makes sense. And they have to have an exit option so that if it's not working, you can press 2 for a human. That really is what I'm looking for in an automated system.
You know, as we continue to develop our support operation and find ways to become better and more efficient at what we do, the criteria that we always ask ourselves, the number one question is this good for our customers? And I guess in this context would be, is this good for the end user? The second question is this good for Jamf or our team? And hopefully those answers are both yes, but if the answer to the first question, is this good for the customers, ever no, that gets tabled pretty much immediately. So understanding where the value in the automation comes from and who benefits from that value is the first piece of the puzzle for us.
Yeah, I want to stick with the easy route here. I will always pick a tool that is easier to use than a tool that has more features and bells and whistles. I don't want a manual ever to be needed to be broken out to figure out how to use a tool, and neither do our customers.
Thank you. All right, the next question. How do you balance the level of empathy expected in providing support with the automation required to scale an operation?
The empathy is, we don't want to be cold and automated. So if it says, are you having this problem? Have you tried turning it off and on again? No. You want to be able to give the person options to fix it. So if they submit a ticket, they get an automated email saying your ticket is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have you tried X, Y, and Z? It has to be very simple, provide the links to what they have to do, and then if it's automated, do it for them. But again, with the empathy, it has to be at least friendly, and not just cold and clinical and dispassionate. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Same wavelength. For fear of putting my foot in my mouth, I'm guessing some of the people in the room here have received an automated email from technical support at Jamf. And our goal with that is we're always looking to humanize this interaction, right? Like, we don't want our customers to feel like a number in a queue. And inversely, we don't want our employees to feel like a cog, a cog in a larger machine. Which is really hard to do with automation, to convey that empathy and really illustrate that we do understand that you are an individual in a unique environment that is having a specific problem that is affecting not only you, but your end users. And really, that's what we try to keep as our compass, is understanding that, yes, our technical support operation is helping you fix your problem, but ultimately your problem that you're having, your issue, is affecting your end users who you are trying to enable with technology that empowers them. So it's the core of our compass, and trying to keep that as our focus as we work to automate things and become more efficient.
Yeah, and I don't really have too much to add on that. If I'm sitting in the end user seat and I have a problem, I just want my problem fixed as fast as possible. And if that's in an automated fashion, that's great. If it's not, that's also great. I just want my problem fixed. So keeping the feedback loop tight, making sure you're informing the end user what's happening, if that's coming from automation, that's fine, as long as my problem's being fixed.
Actually, feedback. That's one of the most important things, is to let them know where it is. Not that, I've gotten ticket 1, 2, 3, 4. Have you tried this? If you've tried something and it doesn't work, there should be an acknowledgement. You've tried option A, it didn't work. We will get back to you. So feedback is extremely important. And that is slightly hard in automation. It is going to be very generic, but that is something that we're really trying to work on.
It's honestly probably better in automation than it is in human form, because, I forget to respond to people all the time. So
Yes.
it's probably more empathetic if it's automatic.
Excellent. Well, machine learning is a hot topic in all areas, and the next question is, how does machine learning impact a modern support team? And Nate, maybe you could lead us in this.
So I'll qualify my answer with, we haven't really enabled this or started to leverage it in the support operation that we run, but we are very interested in tapping into that, right? One of the things we're exploring is enabling some of our less tenured team members to harness the collective knowledge that we've acquired over the development of our support operation. We took a step back and said, okay, so we're solving, X number of cases a day. Surely this is not the first time each one of these problems has been solved. We realize that we're leaving a lot on the table. If that person that got hired 6 months ago has probably solved the same problems that someone who has been there for 60 years has solved, we're just redoing work. And what we want to try and leverage is capturing that knowledge and capturing those solutions, and then enabling our front line that is answering our inbound mediums to tap into that without necessarily knowing the right phrases to search, right? So we are trying to find a way to harness artificial intelligence and machine learning to present them with the knowledge that they don't know, so that they can use it in the moment, if that kind of makes sense. But basically, yeah, taking that tribal knowledge that's been accumulated over time and presenting it to them in a fashion that they don't need to already have that knowledge to find the answers.
So we have a third-party tool that is supposed to learn from our tickets. So if we get a ticket, how do I add a printer? Or how do I add a printer in division A, B, or C? It will pop up with the answers. Part of it is, of course, as you mentioned, putting that tribal knowledge in there. So we have two parts for it. You submit a ticket, it will learn, wait a minute, printer, division, install. It will look for those keywords, and then it will see the fix. Eventually, it will go to one of the management teams and say, I've gotten 200 tickets on this, make a KB for me. But at the same point, there's a user portal. The user portal will also learn from that AI, natural language, and then provide the answer. We've just started on it. It has a lot of work to do, But that's, again, part of building the support rubric and using automation to make our lives easier.
Yeah, you're kind of getting at pattern recognition, more or less, right? If we can figure out what pattern is developing and we know what solution is right for that pattern, that's a huge win, and that's kind of where, machine learning AI can help out in that area. And same thing what you're saying too, if you can give a quick answer back to an end user, again, going back to the empathy thing, I just want my problem solved, and if we can answer that question quickly with some machine learning, all the better. Everyone's going to walk away happier because the end user got their answer quick, and also, the IT team potentially didn't have to touch that, which is great.
Excellent. Don, maybe you can kick us off with the answer to this one. What are the important attributes that should flow between systems?
Oh, man. So many. I think this answer will depend a lot on the organization you're in and what your circumstances are. Obviously, everyone's going to have their top 5 list of attributes you want to know about. But for us, especially when you're talking about like a system issue, I want to know what piece of hardware that person's using. I want to know what version they're on. I want to know, when the problem actually occurred. I want to know what team they're on. I want to know, because that may impact how quickly we have to respond. If we're in our harvest season and a production team member is saying, hey, I have this problem. If I know they're on production and I know that shirts aren't going out the door if they're down, I want to solve their problem more quickly. If they're on my team and they're in tech, for example, I could ignore them for a little bit because they're not getting shirts out the door. So if you can bubble up information on the end user and what they're using, and then again, any patterns here. Have we seen this issue before? I know one of our support engineers will name certain issues after cute little mammals like wombats and the like, and we can pull those up if we see an issue that looks similar to that again, and we'll kind of flag those automatically. So there's tons of different attributes. Those are a couple ones that are important to me.
I think it's more or less the same. If with the systems, I need to be able to know basically, one, the user's issue. But within a single panel, I want to be able to view their tickets, view the history, view similar systems, and auto-escalate. So let's say it's a VP, let's say the CEO of my division, and it happens to be a major event. I want an alert on that.
Talking about escalations, that's something we work with a lot, and I think in the context of automation, and we talk about moving forward, I think it's easy to lose sight of some of the core tenets as you look to implement things that make it more efficient, more bells and whistles. It's real easy to lose sight of the important things, and in the context of escalation, the urgency, right? The emotional state. As that moves from one support agent to another, it's real easy to lose that. Now, if you can build automation into that as almost a fail-safe to ensure that gets communicated as it moves and changes hands, that's huge. And even beyond that, one thing that I think we often take for granted is we have a fairly rudimentary routing system for escalation, right? It routes by topic. That's automation, and making sure that you're getting the right issue to the right person is critical. We are more dependent on that now than ever, and as we continue, as our product continues to expand and it becomes more multifaceted, making sure that we are capturing those specializations or those areas of specialization and staffing people to handle those is part of the automation. It can go, if there's a new topic, a new feature that comes out, we can create a category for it and we can route it, but if we don't have people that it's routing to, automation doesn't mean anything at that point.
Thank you. So based on your experience, how do you know when you have over-engineered an automated system? Do you have any lessons learned or stories that you're willing to share?
No stories I'm willing to share without a lot of alcohol. But basically, if you can't whiteboard it and explain each step to me in less than 3 sentences or maybe 5, there's a problem. If that workflow diagram looks like basically spaghetti, you've over-engineered it totally, utterly, and completely. If I need to have an army of 5 engineers explain to me basically how I get a system to reboot a user's machine. No, it's overdone. That's basically how I would know I've over-engineered it.
So not as technically oriented, but going back to the automated emails that we send out, reminders that like, hey, we're still waiting for that thing. We'd like to move forward on the case. My initial stab at that was the emails that I wrote, which is like the only time I think in my professional career I've ever actually gotten to say that I used my English degree. But I spent a lot of time thinking about how these emails were phrased and was so focused on humanizing this, right? Like, I did not want this to be this robotic, cold email that you receive, like, oh, great, like, I don't mean anything. I am just another number in a queue. I overshot that and found that some people were not even realizing this was an automated email, which actually can be a bad thing, right? Like, there was miscommunication happening at that point. Expectations were not aligned. So I wrote too good of an automated email and learned a valuable lesson. Additionally, when we rolled out, when we were planning this, our goal was to reduce case age, right? Have problems solved faster, to get things cleared up and get everyone, all our customers back on track. The timing, the intervals in which those emails went out was way too aggressive out of the gate. We got a lot of feedback very quickly that this was just completely annoying and not helpful, right? So went back to the drawing board and tried to find the sweet spot in terms of what is the appropriate time in which these emails send out. So again, not all that technical, but things that had huge implications that we initially overlooked. So I guess that's my flavor of over-engineering it. But
I'm going to scrutinize the hell out of those emails next time I see them. I'll send you an email.
I know, right? I mean, I want more emails, but now I know
Well,
why.
more emails.
What? I need to look busy at work.
Fair enough. What are we talking about? Over-engineering, right? I mean, there's a bunch. When it comes to like automated responses and things, you can tell you've over-automated when the end users are just jumping over the automated response and not even reading it and coming straight after you anyways. Typically that means you had the wrong knowledge base article hooked up with it, or you weren't ready when you onboarded some people and they just, the message was wrong. So you have to be careful about making it like too clever in that scenario. Whenever it takes longer to do the automation than it takes to solve the actual thing. I know when I was talking about this particular question with one of the guys back at the office at an old gig he had, they had one guy dedicated just to fixing all the broken stuff with the automated thing that's supposed to fix all the other things. Every time a patch came out or like an update to an OS or anything like that, he would break the thing and then break all the other things, and he'd have to spend his whole day to fix all these things. And really the end fix was maybe like a 5-second thing, and yeah, you had to do it a lot, but when it takes all of 10 minutes a day to do that thing, or like a whole job to fix the automation of that thing, you've gone too far with the automation. But yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me is like if your end users are just hopping right over the thing and coming straight to you anyways, like clearly you haven't engineered it correctly for them, and that likely means you made it too technical in some fashion.
Thanks. How do you handle change management with so many REST calls going back and forth?
I got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought you wanted to. Okay, fine. Yeah. So, I mean, documentation is important here, which is sad because no one really likes to read documentation, and no one really likes to keep documentation up to date. But if it gets a little too crazy, you gotta have like first principles on what's actually happening through the documentation, so you can fall back on it. And I think, coming from a software background, having really good automated tests of endpoints that are passing information back and forth and around, making sure that if this one thing breaks and no one really realizes it, something will tell you that, hey, we broke this thing, that information is getting clogged up before it's too late. I'm going to stick with that. Automated tests, yeah.
I mean, having a dev system. So I came out of publishing. That means it's static. You don't touch it unless you really, really have to. So first off is documentation. Second off is testing. Test, 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 test. And then the third part is obviously documentation with change management and having a backout plan. Because no matter how far you test, if it goes wrong, you need a backout plan. So in my case, how I handle it is very slowly, very cautiously, and once it's tested and documented, then we change the system.
I guess just touching on change management, making sure that it exists. I think change management is something that I see it thrown around a lot. But if you don't adhere to it, it doesn't mean anything again, right? We built out logic to a certain degree and it worked great. And then we kept piling on and piling on. And yes, there was change management and it was going through someone who actually, approved these changes and said like, yep, this works in the logic. But one day, one piece of the logic broke and the whole house of cards came tumbling down. And we're kind of still working out of that. We have all these things we want to do, but we've kind of handcuffed ourselves in terms of like, we're not going to pile on here until we break this down and kind of reevaluate it, right? So actually making sure that you are taking the right steps at the right time in terms of evolving your automation. And then additionally, making sure there aren't too many cooks in the kitchen. Change management is great, again, but if you don't practice it, and if anyone can just submit a change to this automation system, you might lose sight of what's actually happening. And that happened to us to a certain degree where we didn't have any gatekeeper. Pretty much anyone on our team was like, oh, you know what, this is an enhancement, let's do this. And then, 5 months later, I'd come through, make an enhancement, like, well, it doesn't work because this logic now. I was like, well, who did that? So, yeah, making sure it exists and making sure that you actually adhere to it, and then reevaluating it and updating it as needed as you evolve.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And being in a tech company, this is painful to say, but with change management, you have to slow down the process. You need bureaucracy. You need it to be reviewed. You need multiple steps, multiple people there. I'm having flashbacks right now. My engineer's looking at me being very upset. Why can't we do this? But yes, you need to have gatekeepers that are actually not in your organization or not within your department reviewing it.
I think another good point here too is not to let, kind of to build on what you were saying, not to let the thing run away with itself. One of my favorite products will actually delete some features as they're adding new features to kind of keep a box around the thing, which I think is a super bold move and takes like a lot of guts, but I respect it a lot. If there is a feature that's only being used by 10% of your users, I mean, you have to be willing to say like, we're done with this thing and move on because we want to add more stuff to it. Because otherwise, you end up with a crazy cluttered UI, and then again, going back to like all the different calls and things flying around, information being passed back and forth. I mean, you're going to end up with a headache. I'm living that right now. Like we have a giant monolith of a system, and we just kept adding and adding and adding without deleting, and it's a real problem.
I think we're back to over-engineering somehow, but
Like it's all related.
weird. But even like, I was talking about escalation with case rolling topics, right? Like we sat down one day and started planning out like, oh man, we can get really granular and we can get to this to the person that knows the super specific thing. And after we took a step back, we had an insane amount of levels of topics and hierarchies going on here. Like, wait a minute, there's no way this lasts more than a week before the whole thing just implodes, and we are way worse off. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that ties into this question, but it's worth mentioning.
It was change management, that's what it was, and overcomplication. I mean, if your system looks like the old game Mousetrap, yes. At least I did it myself, so I know who's laughing and not. If it looks like Mousetrap, you've overcomplicated it very simply. Just play a game of Monopoly. Very simple, 4 pieces, 5 pieces, you're done.
But Mousetrap is a lot of fun.
It absolutely is, but if you get that mouse and that thing doesn't go down, what am I going to do?
At least you get to employ a lot of people to play the game with you.
Yes.
It's job creator.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go to Amazon.
Okay, well, regardless of our roles in our organizations, we're often asked to quantify the impact of our work. How do you quantify the impact of your automation and DevOps style support efforts?
As a manager, I live on one thing, metrics and numbers. So how do I know the system is working? If I'm getting less simple tickets of rebooting the machine, installing software, but my tickets I'm getting fewer tickets, but they're taking longer, they're more complicated, I know my support system is working because that first level ticket, second level ticket isn't being done, or is being done. That is probably the most simplest way that I can measure success of the tool.
Metrics, yeah. But also, going back to one of my earlier points, like understanding what the value you sought out to create was initially, right? So if the work's easier for my team, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're all having a better experience with the support that you're receiving. And again, going back to those questions we asked ourselves, does it benefit the customer? If we look at the metrics and yeah, we're improving internally, but it's not benefiting the customer, we have not accomplished what we set out to do. So keeping that insight, and actually, the year that we rolled it out, came to JNUC, and I just kind of asked around and asked what everyone thought of the automation that was going on. And generally, the reaction was positive. There were some changes made after that, but I mean, specific metrics, case age, right? If cases aren't taking as long to solve, that means we're solving problems faster, which is an added value and a benefit to the customer. Now, once we established that there was value being added to our customer, our end users, as it were, I did go back and calculated how much time we saved. And just, those emails that we used to have to send manually, each agent would have to send, the conservative estimate was that in 6 months, it saved, 32 8-hour working days was how much work wasn't being done manually anymore, just because we automatically sent out an email at a certain trigger. So that hit both those questions, right? Is there value for the customer, and there's the value for Jamf? And that one kind of knocked out of the park. So we've leaned into it ever since.
Yeah, I mean, metrics. Obviously, they're good. I mean, you have to measure what matters, right? But I would say make sure you don't forget about like the sentimental kind of metrics. I don't know how many people use like NPS for things. Doing an internal NPS, making sure that the people you're serving inside your organization are happy with the thing that you put in place. I think that the sentiment is often a metric that gets overlooked when you're just saying like, what's our close percentage on tickets, or what's the average time they're open, or what's the average time until a ticket is completely closed. I mean, those are all important, but make sure again that the people using the thing are happy with the service they're getting.
Okay. What's the role of a centralized IT in supporting products used by specialists in the organization?
I'll go. Preventing them from buying stupid software, I guess. So at my place, if you want to buy software, it goes on my credit card, essentially. It's run through our budget, whether it is dedicated IT-related things or it's Adobe Illustrator or some financial piece of software. Now, that's not to say I don't buy it without that team's input. Obviously, they're the ones using it. I'm more interested in what product they want to use. But acting as a gatekeeper is kind of important. One, because you can kind of look across the board and see what different people are doing, what different tools they have for what prices. And again, you want to avoid like the bloat thing. Again, I look for software that's simple, gets the job done, and doesn't try to do a bunch of other things in between. Especially if you think about if you're on the finance team and you come to onboard a new team member, you don't want to spend a day and a half or a week and a half explaining like all the different widgets of this fancy like piece of accounting software you just bought. So with my team's experience of interacting with software and creating software, we're able to hone in on if this company is good or not. Also, this happens to a lot of teams. We have a very young company. This is a bad and a good thing, but it's easy to jump on the new hotness. Like the company that just came out got like $100 million VC, and they've only been around for 3 weeks, but like they had a cool Instagram like post, and they're like, we need this marketing tool. They don't have a track record at all. They're still in a garage. Like I want to stay away from software like that in general too. So asking the right questions. I'll ask if are you revenue positive? No. Okay. How much money do you have in the bank? Because the last thing I want to do is put a piece of software in place and then disappears in 6 months, and then like everyone's screwed at that point. So I think it's important to go through someone that has been through that and has seen companies come and go and knows the right questions to ask of that software company. I got that, right? I feel like I went on a tangent.
I don't think there's really anything else to add to it. Being the gatekeeper, no, it's fine by me. I can just shut up now and be quiet. But being the partner, also, because we see everything. Every division uses something. So if Division A is using something and B wants something, why buy their own software? Just use that. So being the gatekeeper, but also being a partner with them. And then also the other part is make sure the software works with your systems. That's a key thing. It may be the latest, greatest thing on Instagram, but if it's not compatible with, let's say, Catalina and causes kernel panics, not a good idea.
You made one other good point that I want to highlight. When I first got to UTs, there was like 2 different like hourly time tracking software being used by 2 different teams. What are we doing? They're not talking to each other.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, we're down to the last question here before we open it up. And the last question is, what support tools might we want in self-service to help drive zero-touch support resolutions?
The most basic tools that, if you're supporting someone that you would need, how do I get logs? Get logs from a machine. How to open a support ticket? Request software. Maybe you just need to clear your font cache. There are plenty of tools for that. Put that in there, but then also communicate to your users. Like if you go to self-service and click on support, you have all these really awesome widgets that are in there. That's part of the support Rubric matrix where the users can support themselves. I don't really want to name anything because I don't think we're supposed to like name various companies here, but we all know about clearing fonts, clearing caches, rebuilding directories. Those are the most basic tools, but then also having support tools that you can reach out to. So if the user says, I need help, please support me remotely, click on the link, it opens up a remote support tool, the next person in the queue will then be able to help someone.
This is actually something very relevant to what we're looking into right now. If anyone's ever called the general support line, more than once, you probably had the same initial interaction, right? They ask for the same information, kind of go to the thing. We have an internal methodology we use called the ONIT, objective, not working, investigated, tried, right? And it's case validation. It's validating what we know, what we don't know, what's been tried, what hasn't worked. We want to work to take that initial interaction and take the person out of it and enable our customers to submit a case and essentially answer those questions without having to interact with a person, so that if you select a topic and say it's 802.1x, well, you'll get prompted with specific questions for specific information relating to that type of problem. That will speed up our entire process, right? It doesn't require that step of you talking to someone on the phone who knows what to ask to solve the thing. We want to present you with the questions, and you can just give us all the information in that first interaction. It's going to cut down on a lot of time, right? So that's one big thing that we're working towards in terms of, it's not even self-help, it's just self-validation and guiding the customer and user through the first stages of working to that resolution.
I have nothing intelligent to add.
Excellent. On that note, we'll open it up to questions. So mics are on either side here. If anyone would like to ask questions of the panel, we'd love to hear from you.
So in an organization that is perhaps in between fully fledged and startup, there are a lot of growing pains, particular in the going from something like a walk-up desk to actually having a real tier system and automation. How do you manage some of those growing pains and friction between training your users to even use the tools that you're getting and then actually getting feedback and issues around that?
I know how to answer this. We're that company right now. So I've been at UTs for 5 years now, and when I first got there, the company's been growing, and it was usually just throw bodies at problems, right? So the walk-up thing was very common. Hey, Josh. Hey, Dan. I need this thing, and like Josh and Dan can no longer do the thing they're doing because they need to fix this other thing, right? And so I can't swear too much. I basically told my team to kind of be a-holes a little bit and say like, no, this has to go through this process, and here's why. And I told my team, you will be in trouble if you answer this person right now in this way. It was a drastic way to do it, but in very quick manner, we went from interrupting everyone constantly. I mean, not even in IT, across the board, this was the norm, was just to interrupt anyone whenever you felt like it. You couldn't get any real deep work done. And so we instituted this policy, like we were using Slack for ticketing at the time, which, whatever, it worked. But we quickly ran out of steam on that one. And it's like, no, you have to go through the Slack channel. We set up specific Slack channels. IT art chit-chat, IT sales chit-chat, IT whatever. If you wanted a question, you had to go through there. If you walked up to Kyle, Kyle was not allowed to answer you because Don would get mad at Kyle. And when we moved, that worked. And no one was really mad at me, which was great. And we were able to use that going forward on other implementations. So you want to be nice, and I get it, you want to be helpful, but sometimes you just have to put that brick wall and set that policy, because it ends up being better for everyone. If you ask anyone from the people we were serving before and after if they felt like they were being served better, it's a dramatic response. Yes, this is a way better way of working.
So I guess on that, how do you get buy-in from all parties to do something like that?
You won't.
All right.
But people have to be willing to disagree and commit, right? And on my team, that's an important attribute. You're not going to have that across everyone, right? If you have a good organization, people are going to be willing to do that, disagree, and commit. You're not going to get everyone's buy-in. You're going to get people that are going to be mad at you. I literally had a girl in tears in front of me one time. She needed something fixed, and that really was terrible for me. But I knew to better serve the organization overall, we had to do it this way. So you kind of have to you just have to be not mean, but you got to put up that wall.
No, you're right. You have to be insert really rude comment type of person here. It's a cultural change. In my previous role in my company, I managed engineering, and that was the first thing I did to client services, our help desk. No ticket, no work. I told my team to log out of all IM systems and mark yourself as out of office, just away, because I would give them tasks to do. And I would find out they're not doing it. It's like, well, why aren't you doing it? I asked you to build out zero touch. I asked you to deploy the latest patch. Well, Jimmy called me, and Jimmy needed, this widget pushed out. You have to be a pain in the butt to do it first. People are going to scream and yell. Are there going to be exceptions? Yes. So from IT to IT, it works. And I'm with you right now. Culturally, where I am right now, it's a walk-up culture. We're going to change that. First thing we're going to do is go to management and say, this needs to stop, because I only have a small amount of people. If you want me to do X, Y, and Z, then you need to stop this, and this is how we're going to do it. But it's a company cultural thing that you have to slowly change and show the benefit and value for it.
I have a slightly different perspective. I'm going to sound super touchy-feely, but our situation is a little different, right? So like internal IT versus us and you as customers and the value that we're offering. We know that the phone is not our most efficient medium. We know that it's probably one of our least effective mediums. It's great for emergencies, but it's not good for day-to-day run-of-the-mill things, right? We rolled out chat a couple years ago. And we knew going into that chat was going to be really efficient for us. And we knew that we'd be able to provide a better experience in working with technical support via chat. That doesn't mean we shut off the phone though, right? We ask ourselves, all right, we know this is the right path, the best path for most situations. How do we add value? How do we make it so that the customer wants to go to chat? Rather than forcing the customer to chat, we made it a great experience so that people use it once. They go, cool, I'm never picking up the phone again because that was so awesome. So that's kind of the value add element there. I have been known to be a bit of an a-hole internally, though, in terms of scheduling call rooms and things like that. So I don't totally disagree.
Yeah, I think that's an important point too. Once you get the cultural shift underway, and right, you're better able to serve the team with you're better able to serve your customers with the team you have. Then yeah, like if someone walks up, I'm gonna help them out. Like it's just gonna happen. Like we still want to serve our customers the best way possible.
So, Mr. Jamf Support, I'm sorry, I don't remember your names, had been speaking earlier about how you've structured your internal decision-making for problem resolution towards a method where you're finding the people within your staff who have the expertise to answer X, Y, or Z question. That also suggests that you wind up getting staff who winds up being siloed a bit. And I'm curious, and this is for everybody, of course, for those situations, what things you do internally to keep your staff from getting siloed as a result of having to make those organizational decisions along the way?
That's an awesome question. We did this once a long time ago, and siloed is the right word for it. We thought we were onto something here, like, yep, cool, there's this group, this people in this group get these types of issues. This group gets this type, so on and so forth, right? Within a month, that totally blew up in our face when 2 people went on PTO at the same time. There was no one for those issues, right? So scalability is one thing. Just number of bodies makes a difference. Because then you have more redundancy, you have more overlap. So we're kind of actually taking another swing at this now. We have a big enough team. There's 91 people that roll up to me in the US here in our technical support department. So we have a large enough sample size to actually build in overlap and redundancy. So 802.1x is, configuration profile, like it falls under that purview. It falls under, networking purview, but it also falls under certificates purview. So what we built out is segments within our team that it's like a Venn diagram, right? So that you have some redundancies built in, and even if that number one expert isn't available or isn't in the office that day, there's someone that knows enough about the peripheral aspects of that they are qualified to work with that as well.
How do you carve out the time for those folks to do that? Like, do you have formal procedures like you are gonna, like one day a month, you are just gonna go learn something else, period?
Got it. So we organically kind of got there just by luck of the draw. Some people get the same type of case enough times, they get really good at it, right? Then they also become known as the topic expert, become a go-to. So more people are asking them questions about that thing. Even if it's not their case, people are calling them with those questions. And then they're motivated to actually seek further knowledge on that topic. So I will admit that we kind of organically got partway there. But at this point, we actually just built out teams around each general topic, and they meet on a different cadence based on the frequency of that topic. They have agenda items. They are accountable for maintaining internal knowledge resources, things like that. So, and then when one of those people moves into a different role, we know that the next person coming into that role has to do that topic. And that opens up a whole other aspect of onboarding and internal role training and things like that. So we're in the very early stages, but that's how we're trying to approach it, to make sure that we build in redundancies and that we identify when there is a gap, that we fill that gap, that specific gap.
If I could just add to it, to your point about how you do it. In the previous life, when I ran engineering, yes, I had two very distinct teams. However, the expectation was that you're also a generalist, so that if Jimmy's out, Jenny can pick it up. So there was a person as an SME for subject A, B, and C, but there were backups at all times. And how did you do it? It was very simple. You shipped them off to training. That was the first thing. We have a mandate at the company that everyone has to have at least 40 hours of training. So you go out, you get trained. Then it's, okay, you have to shadow. So Jimmy has to shadow Jenny on whatever the subject is, and then do the tickets. And it just builds up that expertise. But you have to actually focus on that and make sure that your team is trained.
It looks like we're at time here, and just to respect that you want to get to other sessions, anyone who does have questions, we'll invite you to come and chat with the panel after the session, if that's okay with you. Thank you very much to the panelists, and thank you all for coming to this session.